I think I was addicted to the chaos a little bit early.
Yeah,
I was like
putting out fires.
always, yeah. Whereas now it's, man, me having peace of mind and a level head is like the chief priority. If I'm putting myself in situations over and over again where I feel like out of control or unable to act slowly and with a sound mind, then I'm not doing the right thing. So now I actively guard my serenity and my peace of mind.
All right, so here's something I've been thinking about. When you're starting a business, there's no confusion about your purpose. It's to make money, create stability, and take care of your family. But then one day you realize you've done it. You've created that stability, you have that foundation, and suddenly the thing that's pushing you forward, it disappears. That's what we're figuring out here on the other side of enough. I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs who have hit their financial goals, but they're still searching for something more. We're talking about what business excellence really looks like on the other side. Let's get into it. So we're here with Logan Swanson. Logan, the thing I like about you is you seem to have I wouldn't say your toe dipped in, like you're in the deep end of multiple niches within our niche. You run a land exchange, you run a website where people can buy and sell land. You have a funding business, you have your own land business, you have a podcast. I feel like in multiple areas, you're one step ahead of me, which is why I'm grateful that you came on because really the point of this podcast is to interview high performers who have more abundance than what they need. They have more than enough and just talk about what it feels like. And I think there's this lie that we're told. There's two lies. The first one is when you're a kid, where if you just get good grades, go to good school, get a good job, then you'll be happy. But then once you're in the cubicle trying to get the corner office, then the lie is you're a loser if you have W 2. And if you could just quit your W 2 and make money on your own, then you'll be happy. And you and I did that. Actually, we'll talk about your background in a bit. We
Mhm.
did that, and there's many parts that are better, but it's this belief that if you can get to the end of the rainbow, you'll find the gold. And I think what we want is people to know that it's the journey and it's the building phase that's the most fulfilling. And so that's why we're here to talk about some life questions. Why don't you get into your background and then catch us up to speed where you're at now?
Sure. Yeah, you caught me at an interesting time. I'm actually in the process of closing my marketing service. So that'd be a
Okay,
fun thing to talk about because that relates to all this stuff.
sure.
But yeah, my origin story is I was a construction and restaurant guy here in Dallas, Texas, originally from rural Wisconsin. Grew up in a single wide mobile home in rural Wisconsin with six siblings packed in there like sardines, and made my escape. Went to Texas for college, stuck around, got a degree in political philosophy and philology, which is a linguist degree. I studied Greek and Latin and a little French and a little Spanish. And yeah, I just worked in restaurants because that was what made more money than my degree. At the time, I thought I was going to chase some sort of career trajectory in restaurants, which much about restaurants, there's not much of a trajectory. You can get to general management, which I did when I was 22, and then the next step is a district manager where you're operating multiple stores, and there's maybe a modest pay increase with way more hours, way more responsibility.
Which kind of
And it just,
restaurant was it?
I worked in a few, but it was an Italian restaurant and then a steakhouse chain and
Okay.
then a fast casual like burger chain.
Cool.
And I got to know a district manager pretty well, and man, he hated his life. All he did was work. He had no time for a family. He didn't even have a family. Meanwhile, I had three kids. And I guess what would that be? My mid 20s, I moved into project management and construction, roofing and remodeling here in Dallas. And that was pretty formative for me. I got my first, it was a commission only job, which was very hectic, but it prepares you for like business ownership. But I remember I got my first $10,000 paycheck when I closed one of my projects out. And it was like a mind shift for me because before that, I'd probably made my biggest paycheck was maybe like 3,200 bucks or something like that when I was working 70 hours a week as a general manager. And that's with maxing out my bonus structure. And it just dawned on me like, oh, there's no way I'm getting ahead doing this. There's no way I'm
Yeah.
getting ahead or building a career in restaurants and even in construction. I was just not of the caliber to. Some people would get really wealthy in the same job that I was in, but I just was not really an excellent salesperson. I didn't really have passion for it. So then I probably was in the hairiest time of my life when I was working construction during the day, and then I was moonlighting in a restaurant at night, and I was trying to start my business all at the same time. And I was just,
How old were you during that season?
that was 8 years ago. So 27, 20, yeah, 28, 27, right around there.
Oh, so you're my age.
Yeah, I'm 34.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just turned 36, which when
Okay.
you
So
round
you're
it,
old.
you round up to 40. 35 is you round down, I feel like,
Yeah.
but 36 you round up. So I'm like, wow, I'm a real adult now.
Yeah. I can't pretend to be a kid anymore. It doesn't go over well.
I know. So you're late 20s, you're basically working three jobs and
Hmm.
starting your land business
Hmm.
with little kids at home, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And my wife was also working full time and she's my business partner as well. So she was doing it right along with me. I was working late, but she was waking up 2 hours before she had to get the kids up and get them ready to school so that she could like scrub lists and things like that. So we were very committed to changing our lives at that point.
Yeah. That's the hardest season where you're trying to exit one income source and start another. I was in that season 4 years ago. I had my W-2. I was a company commander in the reserves. I was volunteer teaching at a school, which I don't know why I thought I had time for that. And I was doing my land business, and my wife was starting a daycare at the same time. This is all the first year of COVID, and it was really hard. And if you're in that season right now and you're hearing this, just know that's the hardest season is to get through that when you're in your first year of your business and you're still doing essentially two jobs. So just know that and just feel okay to not be okay.
Yeah. And with
So,
kids,
oh
we
yeah.
had three kids under the age of 6.
Oh man, that's hard.
Yeah.
Fast forward, so you're working those three jobs. Obviously the land business started working. What was kind of like the first shift? Was there one land deal in particular where it broke your brain and you're like, wait a second, I just made half my annual salary with one deal. It took me 7 hours.
Yeah, so there was like a few of those early. We operated in West Texas when we started. So we did not pursue big deals. We pursued stuff we were buying for 70, 80 bucks an acre and selling for 300 bucks an acre. Because I also started with no money. We were pretty much just heavily in debt when we started with all the work that we were doing. We still didn't have much. I took out a
Yeah,
$2,000 loan from a friend to start our business. So we had to play with those little deals first. But 500 bucks was a big deal then.
yeah,
1,000 bucks was a big deal then. So the first time we flipped a few properties, it was amazing. The first few transactions where there was any sort of proof that our lives could change through this process, because we went through a guru class. We were just one of thousands probably that year. I don't know how many people were coming out that were going through some sort of guru course and literally following their instructions step by step. And but our first like big lick for us was we encountered someone who, for some reason, we were doing Culberson County, so I guess you can't see it, but way out in West Texas, and we encountered somebody who was like, "Hey, I'll buy any land in this county for 300 bucks an acre." He just wanted to create like a patchwork of properties. And he gave us a couple reasons why he was doing this, and none of them really added up, but it didn't matter because his checks cleared. So we were buying land at, like I said, 70 to 100 bucks an acre, and he would buy it for 300 bucks an acre. So we had this little 3X machine. And the first time we put together like a 100-acre portfolio of properties, I think one was a 50-acre lot, one was 20, and then some fives. And we went down there and we transacted with him, and our profit off of that deal was like $26,000. I think it was 23,000,
Yeah.
something like that. And it was really bizarre for a number of reasons. But he was in West Texas, in Odessa, Midland, Odessa area. I don't know if you've ever been out there. Are you familiar with that area?
Nope.
It's Mad Max. It's you're driving through the
Oh yeah.
desert. It's all oil rig, like roughnecks, and they have these flares where they have oil wells that are just flaring off gas. So there's
Burning.
literally, yeah,
Yeah.
big burnt. I was from there as far is as different from Wisconsin as you could imagine. So like the whole thing
Right.
was so bizarre to me. I'm driving out here, I'm meeting with this guy. We show up to this little office building, which looks like it's like a firm breeze would blow the thing over. My wife and I go inside, and there's literally like water dripping from the ceiling panels. It looks like a horror story inside there. We go down a little ways and we see the office number, and we go in, and this guy has this like beautiful modern office with like samurai swords and contemporary art everywhere inside of this bizarre facility. And we
Huh.
sat and talked with him for 30 minutes. He handed us a whatever 20 some $1,000 check and said, "Hey, you can go cash it across the street if you want." And yeah, we got that first hit, which was crazy. I'd
So what was
never.
he buying it for?
So he, like I said, he gave us a couple reasons, but one of them he said was he believes the future of energy for the country, but Texas specifically, is going to be huge solar farms. And he says the
Huh.
ideal place for solar farms is going to be out in West Texas, and specifically this county for some reason. I believe he said it had to do with access to water, because most solar farms are effectively steam turbines, or at least the ones he was
Yeah.
talking about. So you pump water in, all the solar energy focuses on an air, or mirrors focus on something in the middle. I can't remember. Anyways, that he said that they're going to be running water lines all over West Texas someday, and I want to own the rights to stop those up and have people lease them to me. And it may be just a scratch off, but all he's ever done in his life was oil and gas leases and buy and sell
Yeah.
Texas land, and that was like his scratch off.
He was doing buy and hold speculation, essentially.
Yes. Yep. And we actually tracked some of those deeds. He was also like handing the properties to other people that lived in Odessa. It was a bizarre operation. And some of them he never even filed. We actually have properties that are still in our
Huh.
name that he bought and we handed him the deed on, just weird stuff like that.
So we had something like that in Mojave County, Arizona. This
Mhm.
guy, as American as you can get, not a foreigner, nothing. He's like normal guy from Arizona. He's buying all of our properties at 80 to 90% of market value. And we're like, what is going on? You don't want to ask too many questions because he's like moving your inventory, but
Yeah.
you're wondering like how is he affording to pay so close to market value and just buying up. He would buy up like a third of my inventory. He'd buy 30 properties at a time. And I would ask his assistant, I'm like, what are you guys doing with this? And her answers were always very avoiding, just super high level, like stuff. You could tell there's a answer that they're not wanting to tell you.
Yeah, they're playing
And
around, a little
so,
deception, smoke and mirrors sort of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and Buck Risby had the same buyer buying from him. And we're like, what's this guy doing? So the two theories I came up with is he's either buying up land for China or like a fund or something, but I don't know what kind of fund wants desert land. Or he's laundering money for a cartel or something.
I could see that. There's all sorts of games you can play with land for sure. And I question the same thing. Since he gave me two different responses, I assumed there was a third honest response. But there is also this weird deal where people like being the biggest landowner in a county.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it's
like
a
literally,
ego thing. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
pure ego
yep.
thing. And if that can be done very affordably and there's very low, I mean, like these properties have $2 a year in taxes. They're the holding cost.
It's like a super illiquid CD. So we found out what this guy was doing in Mojave County. Like a year or two later, they publicly released the plans for some massive futuristic development.
Hmm.
One of those Apple cities where you like only ride your bike everywhere, and there's like a monorail going through the middle of the town and stuff. And I don't know if they'll actually build it out, but he was trying to buy up all the land surrounding those plans. And so it was nothing shady at all. He was literally just speculating.
Get some insider information. Yeah,
Yeah, he got those plans. And good for him. I hope he triples his money because I tripled my money selling to him and
that's
I'm
all you need.
happy.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so that was in the early days. What are you up to now?
Yeah, so now it's mainly funding. This last year has been a lot of selling through old inventory. At one point, we accrued a lot of land all over the map. And for a while there, I had a nice little machine that was turning and selling those properties regularly. But so many more recreational properties that you had to own or finance, and they would sell in default about as quick as I would sell them, they default, and they'd be back in my inventory months later, 2 months later, 3 months
Yeah.
later. And I wasn't really making a whole bunch of money off those. I was focusing on a couple of the developments at the time. So, at the beginning of last year, I'd looked at my inventory, and my wife's, we have 60 properties that we have to
Yeah.
sell. And I don't have a staff anymore, really. I have one transaction coordinator. It's me and my wife and a couple VAs. That's the whole thing,
Yeah.
and partners on different projects. But yeah, last year it was a couple development projects. We have three development projects we're working on. We have, I guess, two now. One finally closed out. Then the funding business, which is, I don't know, not terribly hands off. It was going great for a while, but things slowed down. We had a lot of defaults this year. So now that's just made its way into my inventory of lots that I have to sell. And then there's been like kind of some of my side projects. The marketplace that I'm wrapping up on, I gave that a solid year of effort, which ended up being a loss leader, but a fun mission.
The
And
Prime
then,
Land Exchange.
yeah, yeah, it was actually our third iteration of trying to make a profitable, or really even, I would have been happy with break even, but a marketing channel that was actually bringing in new types of buyers, whereas all the other ones are just all competing for the same SEO. So it's like,
Yeah.
if there wasn't competition, you just get the same leads. You know what I'm saying? So there's not really a big difference between most of them. And then my podcast, I focused a lot on just branding and creating a audience, a couple Facebook groups that I'm plugging away at, growing incrementally. And then I started a local meetup here. I've actually had it for a long time, but I've been trying to grow it recently, and I've been running monthly seminars there where I bring in speakers and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot
You're a
of
busy
different things.
guy.
Yeah, too
How
busy.
many
That's why I'm
deals?
cutting fat.
I know you're in a stage where you're cutting the projects. I said it, I think I said like a year ago, instead of having 10 little bonfires, I just want two big ones. And I think you're in that season. Now, how many deals are you funding, let's say, per month? And are they flips? And then how many development projects do you have on your own?
So right now, we've completed one development project. We got two more that we're completing. We have not really funded any new deals in the past couple months since we went through this default season, mostly because they don't pan out. We got very conservative in our underwriting.
Yeah.
And most of the ones that people are bringing us, we just have to pass on. Our internal metrics told us that the retail value of the deals that people are bringing to us are actually usually around 80% of what they're projecting. And most people are bringing us deals around 60% of their retail estimation. So when
Yeah.
you factor in broker fees and closing costs and everything else, like most of these deals people are bringing us have
Break even.
15%, yeah, maybe 10% of profits that could be shared, which wouldn't cover our cost of capital, let alone our transaction manager or anything for our partners.
So you're
So it's been
saying
dry.
let's say they bring you a parcel they think is worth 100 grand. You're
Mhm,
saying they locked it up for 60
mhm.
and it's actually worth 80.
That's a very common deal that's being brought to us. Or it's some sort of creative structure. So people have been bringing us deals that they've gotten owner financing for. So they're like, hey, we have, and it's usually some sort of subdivide project that's very common. They'll say, hey, we
Yep.
got this subdivide deal. This guy's agreed to owner finance this $200,000 property to us. It's 40,000 down. And then we need to run power and roads, and that's going to cost whatever, 100
100.
grand or 150 grand or something like that. And we really just want you to be responsible for the down payment and the capex. And that's the riskiest. You're asking us to hold all the risk. The deed's not going to be in our name, and all of the money that we're putting in isn't going to be something we can walk away with if things go sideways. And especially now in one of our bigger projects, the we have seller finance on that deal, and that seller has been really the attorney representing him has been a real pain in the ass. He held up about $1 million worth of transactions for 6 months arbitrarily, and we lost sales over it. It was a huge loss in terms of interest on the fund's extent. So I think we're in a season where there's still deals. We're seeing them. I'm still getting a few of them in my own pipeline every once in a while, but they're not like they used to be. Most of the deals that are being brought to us don't pencil.
Yeah. I think 2024 was such a slow year that it really caused a lot of us to realize that 2020 through 2023 were not normal years, they're abnormal years. And
Hmm.
it's 2024 is, okay, this is back to normal,
Hmm.
2019 and before that. Now, I know what you meant, but for the listeners, just a few minutes ago, you said you had a season of a lot of defaults. That doesn't mean that you are defaulting on any of things
No.
that you're borrowing. These you're talking about your terms buyers that bought an owner finance, they stopped paying, and after 4 months of no payments, you get to take back the property and you can resell it if you want. That's what you're talking about.
And also in our funding company. So, when someone brings us a deal and we fund it, depending on the situation, they usually have either 9 or 12 months to sell that property. And the market was so slow that, I don't know, close to 50% of the property that we funded defaulted last year. And we hold all title. But effectively, the structure in our business is kind of like someone brings a deal to us, they assign the contract to us, we buy the property, we hold title, and then we have a JV agreement between us and the
Right.
partner that brought us the deal. And that JV agreement terminates after either 9 or 12 months or some custom amount, depending on how it was structured. And I think most of that was just due to the market being slow. Those deals, the underwriting
Right.
was fine as it was in 2022 and 2023, but yeah, 2024 was just not a big cash heavy buyer season. We had
Right.
elections, we had a lot of things that really held stuff up, and I still think with tariffs looming and people not really knowing what's happening internationally, there's still a lot of that going on right now. We have deals that we were very confident would sell that are still just sitting on the shelves.
2025 so far. This is April 3rd, so
Hmm.
we just finished quarter one. How has that been? I've seen a huge uptick in my sales.
Yeah.
But I haven't measured it. I just subjectively looking at it. Are you guys seeing does it seem like a faster year, about the same as last year, or
It's definitely improved. I wouldn't say it's for us anything dramatic, but I do think shortly, as the seasons change a little bit and things warm up, that's when we're going to see the big, the big uptick. Because so many of our property, like what kind of killed us is a lot of our properties are in North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and they almost all got hit by those
with
storms.
the hurricane?
Roads,
Yeah.
so on top of a slow market. So it's also just dumb luck. But most of that stuff's cleared up now, and with the seasons changing, I think we're going to see some stuff selling now.
Now, when you're funding these deals, how much of it is your own capital versus arbitraged money? And then where are you sourcing your arbed money from?
So my partner Ryan is the money guy. We He has a large portfolio of rental homes and apartment complexes and just has a huge
And
access.
collateralize that.
Yeah, yeah. It's not the cheapest money, but it is the most flexible money. So if somebody brings
Yeah.
us a deal and it's compelling, either us or our network can work it out. Like we were talking the other day about us partnering on a whale, like some sort of big land deal, which I'm still looking at. But most of it's just small deals. Honestly, we're over small deals at this point. Don't bring us small deals. They're
What would be
tough.
small for you? Anything under 100K purchase price?
Oh no, like under 20. We had people that were bringing us like these like $5,000 deals and $10,000 deals, and Unless you can make like a $15,000 profit, it's hard to make it make sense to
Right.
do the paperwork.
Yep.
If there's a $20,000 profit or higher, then yeah, we're there. That's fine.
So when these operators they default after 9 or 12 months, then it's up to you guys to try and sell it. How does that process work?
We've tried a lot of things. First off, I just offer the partner to buy it out.
Yeah.
If you have a ton of faith in this deal and you want to take it and you think we're 1 month away from doubling our money, have at it. We'll just charge a simple interest amount and get out from under it and go put our capital into something that's going to move. And we've never had anyone take us up on that deal. So, yeah, we've extended with a few people and actually lowered our interest rate because the last thing like the whole point of having a funding company is to not have to sit here and sell all these properties. I don't have the infrastructure for it anymore. I don't really want to do it. I'm fine. I'm
Right.
pretty good at it, but it's not, the whole point is to move away from it. Like land is not
Right.
a passive business. So our goal was to try to like, all right, I have a guy, I have a partner that I work really well with that's got a bunch of money. Let's just go move his money around and I can make some money off of that and try to make it as passive as possible. And this didn't work out that way last year. They have all effectively, I've given them the option to buy it out. I've extended it with a few people. Those extensions still don't usually pan out. It actually just creates an even more uncomfortable dynamic. And then there's this other issue where I think you were actually talking about this, I think on Kendall's podcast, where in funding, it behooves us to slash prices and get stuff off the books, but that is
Right.
of reluctance for our partners because oftentimes they're operating on a profit share. So when we slash prices, and I don't know if you have this in your company, but we have a minimum profit written into our contracts as well. We can slash a property price down to the point where we'll make our bag and walk,
Yeah.
but that's not good for our partners.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they're reticent to lower the price in a timely manner and we'll apply pressure and they'll push back. And then it gets to a default. Like we just defaulted another property yesterday. And this partner, it's his, I don't know, third or fourth property that we've had to default on. And now it's just not worth letting it linger or giving them extra months because it hasn't really seemed to make a difference. It's best to just, hey, we're going to follow the terms of the contracts. I'm issuing you a notice of default. You have the opportunity to purchase the property from us. Go seek funding elsewhere if you want. We'll work with anyone else who wants to take this from us. And recently we've been just I've been dabbling with auctions, trying to offload properties through auctions. I haven't found a good auctioneer yet, or at least anyone that's been able to turn anything of ours. But yeah, we'll see. They're all listed with agents and whatever else. So as the market shifts, they'll start selling.
I feel like a lot of podcasts just filled with optimism and only sharing like the home runs. But this is real stuff. Business is really good some years, and other years it's really slow. 2024 was very slow for me. I thought I was going to make well into the seven figures, and I netted about a third of that, mid to high six figures. And it it seems like income in the business space does not, at least for a funder, it moves exponentially, not linearly. So if the market's half the speed, my income seems to be about a quarter of what it is. Versus
Hmm.
if the market speeds up 2x, my income increases 4x.
Yeah, if you can
Um,
switch the same money around 3 times in a year, you're gonna have a hell of a year. But if you can't get it done once in a year, that's a tough year.
yeah. But of all your deals, how many, I think people want to know, and I'll say mine, how many losses have you had across all of your deals?
In my career or just in funding?
Yeah, but across both, let's say.
Okay. In funding, four maybe
Are
have
these
we
like
lost
just under
money on.
break even?
Three of them were just under break even because we pay interest on all of our money. So we always make sure that our money partner is getting paid. We'll never,
Yeah,
we'll never, we are always going to value that capital.
right.
We have no problem taking a loss to make sure that's paid back. So most of them have been just like, I don't know, $500 or $1,000 under, nothing that's going to kill us. But we did have one deal. Man, this deal was the bane of my existence. It was a property in North Carolina in something I'd never heard of. It had an HOA, and that HOA was part of a bigger HOA. So there's two HOAs that were collecting fees and dues, along with a high tax burden. And the property looked great. And the comps were vague. I mean, that's, I don't know. Maybe you run into this all the time. That's our what we tend to deal with very often is just vague
Right.
comps. Like you'll be looking at
Yep.
an area in a community where there's clearly been hundreds of transactions because all these lots were sold at some point, but there's no data anywhere. Texas is notorious for this. But it seemed fine when we funded it, and all of our deals were turning really quickly at the time. So I was like, I forget what we bought it for, something like 24, $25,000, and the comps were compelling that it'd sell in 3 months for $50,000. But hey, say it sold for 45 or $40,000, it was still fine. But then the market slowed down, and we started accruing these costs, the HOA fees and the taxes ended up being like $5,000 or $6,000. And then we had to do a perk test and we had to survey it in order to get it sold. And we had to get marketing material multiple times. And then finally, we sold it to the neighbor for a little less than we bought it for. And that was really our only option to get out from under it because the only part of the parcel that perked was the only area for a driveway. So effectively, the only person that could use it was the neighbor that had a house on one side or the neighbor that didn't have a house on the other. After a while, we just took it on the chin. I think it was like a 12 or $13,000 loss, which in the grand scheme of things, with how much money moves around in our business, it's not the end of the world, but it made us pucker, tighten up, because this is actually a very similar trend to when I was flipping land full time. We had these first couple years where it was like you could send out a carrier pigeon with a $500 check on it and it would come back with a deed and you would triple your money. It was crazy how easy things
Right.
were when I started. And then things got lean. And then I got caught holding a bunch of properties that I couldn't sell. And I bought properties that weren't actually very profitable. So I
Yep.
realized we had gotten lax in our underwriting in funding because we had just had so much early success and there's all this low hanging fruit and there's less competition. And then we got burned when the market slowed down. And I'll take that lesson. I'm always grateful for a lesson now. And at the end of the day, it's still like a pretty safe investment. This is a
But
rare
getting burned,
case.
yeah, you had, so this is just with funding. So you've had three just under break even losses, which
Hmm.
I wouldn't really count as a real loss. And then one true loss where you bought for 25, you put 10K into it, and then you sold for 23,000 or something, right?
Hmm.
And that's out of how many deals?
40, 50 this year, something like that.
And then what about in your own business, the West Texas small stuff? You've
It's
done
great.
hundreds of deals there.
I love those. Yeah. It's actually, I want to go back. I don't know. I've only lost money on two, maybe three properties in my flipping business. One, I will most assuredly lose money, but they're so small. I didn't actually lose a lot of money ever on a deal. Here, I'll just tell you my biggest L in flipping. So when I got really cocky, I think it was like my second year, third year, I don't remember when it was. Everything was seemed like low-hanging fruit. Literally every county I'd move into, I'd send a single big mailer and I'd buy four, five, six properties and they'd all turn really quickly. And I pulled a list from DataTree for Siskiyou County, California, which seemed to check all the boxes. Big recreational, beautiful area. And I mailed the entire county, all of this in like an hour. Like I priced it and mailed it all within an hour. It was something like 22,000 records. So I sent whatever that equates to 11 grand, 12 grand in mailing, just boop out the door. And within a week or two, my phone blew up because all of the data tree records had the decimal points on the acreage off by one.
Mm,
So I was sending an offer for 100 acres, but it was actually a 10-acre parcel.
yep.
And it was terrible. I sat and answered those phone calls. I had someone who was helping me, but that was like a crisis moment. So I just stepped back in and I was
Yep.
taking all the phone calls and apologizing and repricing at literally on the phone. I'd be like, I know I offered you 100,000, I'll offer you 10,000. And people were like, hanging up on it. It was
Not
miserable.
happy.
It was
Yeah.
like a solid 3 weeks of getting screamed at on the phone and being really afraid that people were going to blow up my Google, I don't know, or on
Right.
Facebook, really roast me. There's a lot of ways that people can damage your brand, and I really care a lot about my brand. So that was, but I went through the process. I spoke to everybody, and I got into this mindset that I see a lot when I'm talking to other land investors, which is like the sunken cost fallacy. I sent this mail. I
Right.
have to buy a deal. Like
Right.
otherwise, I really took it on the chin. And I ended up negotiating with three people. It was actually like five, but two of them didn't pass underwriting. Three people that all owned lots in this area of Siskiyou County called, oh, I can't, Lake Shastina. And they looked like a bunch of deals that I've done in other areas. Just little like quarter acre lots subdivided around a lake. And they all had some restrictions, but I was buying them for $1,000, $800, like nothing.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to mess it up. It was a new state for me. So I sent them all the title. The title company got me. I ended up paying some back taxes. So each one of them ended up being around $2,000 or $2,500 on the acquisition. But I was still thinking these are going to sell for 5 or 15 grand. So I was like, there's still plenty of room here. And I started marketing them and they just would not move, would not move. No interest, no interest. And I found out that Lake Shastina was pretty much a dry lake. Yeah, so it was more like a big crater and mud crater. But the Google imagery I was looking at made it look like a full, beautiful lake. And then found out the restriction, like I bought land in two different HOAs and they had different restrictions. And two of
So how
them,
much did you buy it for?
I think all in, I was like 7,500 on all three lots. And I've sold two of them. I still have one that's still just sitting there accruing HOA fees and stuff I'm refusing to pay. I might just let it go back to the county. But I short sold one just to get out from under it for 3 grand, and then I sold another one for 5 grand. So
So
overall,
you're
I
ahead
will
a little bit.
maybe if I am able to sell the third one,
Yeah. And out of how many deals in your personal business, how many deals have you done
four or
in the
five
past 8 years?
hundred, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you have, what do you have? 6 or 7 losses across 4 or 5, let's say 500 deals.
yeah,
That's,
yeah.
to me, that's just, this is why I love our business model, because we've gone through fast years and slow years. And if this is the worst that happens, like in mine, I have one loss in my own business and two with funding deals. And they're all just under break even pretty much. One was
Hmm.
$400 loss, one was $800 loss. And then in my own business, it was actually the only structure I ever bought. I bought a hunting shack in rural Arizona for 18 grand and it got broken into twice. The solar panels were stolen, the gate was broken, and 4 or 5 months later I was so annoyed with it. I sold it for 15,000.
Hmm.
Actually, I think I got 15,000 after closing costs. And 18,000 was like all in with closing costs. To me, like if
Yeah.
that's the worst that happens, we will have a loss. We have one that we bought. It was 3 lots, I think in Georgia, paid 85,000 for, and called the city. We did our due diligence, no pipeline, no concerns. So we decided it was unnecessary to do a survey.
Hmm.
Should have done the survey. There's a pipeline making two of them unbuildable. And so we will take a loss on those three. But again, across 650 deals, if you take one big loss every 650 deal, I think anyone would play those numbers all day long.
Yeah. And that's really where you lose money in our industry is the stuff that most people don't track. And I also don't track well, so I'm not gonna pretend I do. But it's if you are in that flipping stage and you're doing a ton of like mailings or your subscription services, like for a long time, I had between subscription services and staff, like I had a lot of money that was going out the door every month. And when I would encounter a couple mailing cycles where I didn't acquire anything, like those were losses. And I would just chalk those up to the game. And they are just the game, so it's not terrible. But
Yeah,
it's I think if you look at each deal and you really incorporate all the acquisition costs into it as well, I would probably go back and say, hey, there's other deals that I lost money on. Because that's why I brought up the
yeah,
mailing portion of those three deals. Like, I'll sell those three deals and maybe I'll break even on that. But I spent 11 grand just in mailing. I paid an acquisition
right.
manager the whole time. Those deals gummed up my software. All of my other leads, there's probably other leads I didn't talk to while I was trying to clean up this whole mess. I could have lost 40, 50, 60 grand in all that headache. But yeah, if I just pencil it out and I just look at those three specific deals, it's not as bad. And I think that's where things are undersung in our industry yeah, it may be hard to lose money per deal, but there's a lot of ways to operate the businesses inefficiently and lose a lot of
Right.
money, or at least
Yeah.
lose a lot of your potential profits through too much overhead.
Yeah. I think our business model is, from an investor standpoint, I think it's far superior to other asset classes. But from a business owner standpoint, it's just a normal business.
Hmm.
And there's going to be years where it's really good, other years where you have to lean and slim down. And I don't know about you, but I think in our business, depends how big your overhead is. We're seeing margins anywhere from 20 to 60% profit margins, right?
Hmm.
Like net profit. That's a healthy business right there. I've seen as low as, after tax strategy, I've seen as low as 18% profit margin, like after running as many strategies as I can. And in my best year, which was best year in terms of margin, which is before I had any staff, I saw my first year at 75% profit margin, right?
Hmm.
Because it's just me, it's just all my labor, it's
Hmm.
just me doing all the work. So I think the trap we fall into is thinking that we're looking for the holy grail of business models, and it's not out there. We think of software, where software is just a labor game, and they're seeing 90% margins on their stuff, but also it's all labor, and also that's all going to be taxed. That's You're getting taxed at ordinary income rate. So I think we need to stop chasing the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and just learn to enjoy the journey. I don't know
Hmm.
about you, but the time I enjoyed most in my business is those first 2 years, where things were, you weren't sure. You send out mailers and you just don't know what's going to happen. And those first few wins were probably the biggest dopamine hits I've ever had. My first deal, I'll never forget. I bought a property for $1,100 and then sold it on owner financing for 5,900. And to me, that was awesome. So I got 750 down and then 100 a month. So I broke even after 4 months.
Hmm.
And to me, I was like, man, these people are willing. They just want like something in the middle of the desert, and I'm buying something from somebody who doesn't want it. I'm reselling to somebody who wants it. And this guy sent me pictures for years, him enjoying the land. And it's a model where everyone can win, which is why I love it. So let's get into some questions. Let me see what I sent you. I must have sent you these a few weeks ago. I really like your transparency, Logan, because I think a lot of times, like I said earlier, it's easy to share all the wins and all the success on a public forum, but that doesn't always happen, right?
Hmm.
There's seasons where everything seems hard, and that's okay, and that's part of the growing journey, and that's what makes business fun. Because we all know, if money just ended up in our account without any work, without any stress, it wouldn't be fulfilling, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't mean anything. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the point? It's the same as inheriting money. Unless you really need it to for basic survival, it doesn't add any extra happiness. I want to talk about balance because you have 3 kids. Um, you're married. You have multiple business projects going on. Do you believe that balance exists?
Yeah. Yeah. Balance. I don't know if maybe I wouldn't use the word balance. I'd say boundaries. Boundaries, maybe an understanding of realistic expectations. Those things exist. You were just saying that you're maybe the happiest time for you in this business was the first couple of years. For me, it's now. It's Yeah, I'm at the point where I'm really unfazed by all of the crazy stuff that seems to always be happening. Before, that was always like an emotional swing. Like we had a property that we bought and we somebody told us it had an old home foundation on it, an old residential foundation on it. And after we bought it, we found out it was a gas station. And we found out because
Oh,
Texas, yeah, TCEQ called us and said, "Hey, you need to remove these unremediated tanks, gas
yeah,
tanks out from under." And that messed me up. I was like, I have no idea how much it's going to cost. I have no, how do you do that? Like all of it was so unclear to me, and it was
right.
like such a source of anxiety and frustration. And especially my wife being my partner, we didn't have healthy boundaries on we're moving. Like it's family time. I'm sitting here worried about it, bringing it up to her. We're trying to do homework, and we kind of had this frenzied, yeah, like anxious, frenzied approach to life for the first few years because we had no discipline and plan on how to deal with
Boundaries.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
boundaries on after this time, don't really talk to me about business or being really intentional with like when I'm with my kids or whatever. But
So if you want to
yeah,
talk to her about business, do you send her an email?
that's very common. Email, Slack is typically what we'll do. We'll be sitting right next to each other. I'm in my office now. Her desk's right there, but oftentimes, like, it's my house. So I just go in the living room and I'll be
Yeah.
sitting in my chair or whatever, and I'll be working. We'll just be slacking back and forth. And if she doesn't answer me, I don't get up and go in the next room and be like, wow, she's working on something else.
Right.
She'll get to me when she
Yep.
gets to me or whatever, and vice versa. And it was not like that when we started. We had no idea. We had her parent, we both grew up in mobile homes. We did not, it was not modeled to us how to be great husband and wife or great business owner. And also just made a lot of early, I wouldn't say mistakes. I pursued my business with vigor and oftentimes
Yeah.
acted before I thought. And that can gain you a lot of ground and create a lot of headaches. And I think I've finally gotten to the point where maybe there's a little bit of wisdom in me. So we're not repeating the same mistakes, which kind of was a cycle for a while. Like I would do the same thing over and over again and not really learn a lesson. And also, one of our business partners is very calm and measured, and I've learned a lot
The
from
money
him.
guy.
Yes, he's very calm and measured, and he's seen everything. His name's Ryan, but we can call him Money Guy. He'd probably like that. But that's also been helpful, just like being really open to learning. And then also just our network. We have this big land community. If I run into any problem, I can call somebody who's dealt with it and they'll teach me the lesson. I've just learned to be a lot slower and more risk adverse, and that's allowed for us to just be a little more relaxed day
Yeah.
to day. So this is the best period. And I've also learned a lot just spiritually. One of the things that I think I was addicted to the chaos a little bit early.
Yeah.
I was like,
Putting out fires.
always, yeah, always. Whereas now it's, man, me having peace of mind and a level head is like the chief priority. If I'm putting myself in situations over and over again where I feel like out of control or unable to act slowly and with a sound mind, then I'm not doing the right thing. So now I actively guard my serenity and my peace of mind. So there's way less highs and lows.
How
It's
you
just
doing
much
that?
more
Is it, are
um
you doing like a morning prayer time, or what does that look
kind of
like?
constant prayer time, I guess I would say. I don't really have a lot of structure around I do have a structure around how I approach every problem now. So X problem arises. We just had one today. Not a big deal, but like this difficult seller I was talking about on our Tennessee subdivision. We have enough deals lined up where we're going to close and pay off the note and just be on our own. And he decided this is his point of maximum leverage to slip in a big attorney bill and just say, hey, by the way, you're responsible for all these attorney fees that you've aggregated over the course of. And we are just like, we did not agree to this. And immediately my partner gets really upset because he saw it come in and pushed on it. And my wife's pretty upset about it. And I'm like, here's the process. I always start with the frame of mind, it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be okay. It's not like
Yeah.
he's going to drive down here and murder my family. It's money, right? It's like all of
Right.
this is it's already fine. Okay, so I start with that frame of mind. It's already fine. It's going to
Yeah.
be even finer eventually. And then I remind myself, like, the whole point of doing this is to do progressively more difficult things. It's like working out, right? If you go to the gym,
Yeah.
the goal is to lift more weight.
Hmm.
I then go to this is the this is the reason I signed up. I didn't have kids to not raise kids. I didn't start a business to not run a business. So this is the whole point of it. Like I'm living in the good old days currently, so I just frame myself a little bit, and then I have a lot of gratitude. This is the if I were to have told myself 7 years ago, 8 years ago, whenever it was, when I was still working 70 hours a week and all of like how hard I worked to get to this point, to have all of these luxuries and to deal with these little problems and having that gratitude. It took me 30 seconds to go through and process all of that and be like, all right, now let's think of rationally of a couple solutions here. And then I have my partner I can bounce things off of, and we have our operators that we can bounce some things off of, and we'll find like the emotion added to it adds nothing.
I've never heard that, living in the good old days now. I think
Mhm.
that's such a good mindset because it's true. We, I think back to 2017, 2018 when we lived here in Korea, and now we're visiting, and I'm like reminiscing about all the good times, right?
Mhm.
Back when I just had, I was just day trading. I didn't have a ton of stuff going on. And those were the good old days. But now is the good old days for 10 years from now, right? It's
Mhm.
good to think about that. Okay, so you worked really hard to get where you're at now. It's about framing and abundance mindset. How much are you working now? or is it hard to measure?
It fits in spurts. I would say a good productive day for me, anywhere between 2 and 4 hours, as far as like the land business is concerned. Like a lot of what I do right now is just content. Like I'm gonna record something and then I'm gonna cut it up and I'm gonna put it places and then I just hop in my CRM and see what's selling and maybe make a few phone calls. It's really not a lot of dedicated time. It's usually just like being available to answer the phone when it does ring
Yeah,
is a lot of it. But that will be changing. We're opening a coffee shop here in Dallas, and me and my other partner Josh are going to be building it with our own two hands. So that's going to be kind of
awesome.
like, yeah, that'll be a pretty
That's fun.
intense 5 month, 5, 6 month endeavor of just swinging hammers.
I'm thinking about something you said just a couple minutes ago where it's about framing. It's about if you have a frustrating situation, just knowing it's not the end of the world and knowing that no matter what happens, even if you get sued for your whole net worth, we live in the most abundant country in the world. You're still going to have 3 meals a day. You're still going to have a roof over your head. Like things are still going to, it's not going to affect your survival at all. And I
Hmm.
think that's why it's so important for us to always surround ourselves with abundance mindset people because a lot of times when the future seems unsure, your brain can go in one of two directions. It can either be like, oh, the world is my oyster and I could do anything and I could cold call and make 250 a year just from cold calling and wholesaling houses. Or
Hmm.
you can go in the other direction where you're like, my life is over. I'm gonna have to go back to working a job I don't enjoy. And I think the people that surround yourself with, when you hear their dialogue, whatever they speak is usually their internal dialogue becomes your internal dialogue. And so it's important to be careful with who we're around. But I think, Logan, you also know, as do I, we're put on this earth to help others,
Hmm.
right? So if we're only surrounding ourselves with people who have healthy mindsets, how do we help the people who need help?
Yeah, and actually I've never really talked about this publicly, but I'm sober. I've been sober for 3 years now, and part of that program is I go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm there 3, 4, 5 times a week, and I'm constantly in contact with people at their lowest moment. That's what
Okay.
in AA is like. Somebody's wife just left them, they just got out of rehab, or they just got their third DUI, they just wrecked their car. So I'm very routinely, almost every day, in contact with somebody who's having the worst day of their life and honestly seeking help and being honest and transparent, sometimes for the first time in their lives. So that in and of itself gives me a ton of framework to reference.
Yeah.
It's endless. Like, I don't need to tell anyone else's stories, but the life that I have, where I hardly work, yes, money's up and down. Sometimes I don't make money in a month. Sometimes I make a bunch of money in a month. That's stressful. That's it. Like I spend as much time with my family as I want. My daughter was sick this week, and in the past, if my wife and I both had full-time jobs, like that would have been catastrophic. Who was going to
Yeah.
watch our daughter? One of us was going to have to not work, or we're going to have to take paid time off, all this sort of stuff. We didn't even have to think about it. Like my poor daughter's sick. Give her a little medicine. Like I was just before we got on this call, I was just like laying with her watching Tangled, like that.
Yeah.
Like my hardest days are still relatively modest compared to what a lot of people I talk to every day are going through. So that gives me a lot to reflect on, but also like I'm always of service to those sorts of individuals. And that's actually
Yeah.
again one of the reasons why I'm opening my coffee shop is in land. Like I said, two things. So I'll tell you what I'm trying to do in land next year, but with the coffee shop, like I found that I more than anything else, I love building community.
Yeah.
So you can do that online. Obviously, like you can have Facebook groups and a podcast and things like that. And then you can have it in real life where you go to meetups and, oh, hey, Drew, let's go drive supercars together or whatever. But I really coming from the service industry, I love that. Like there's this fun game. Have you ever worked in a restaurant or waited tables?
I have not, but I wish I have.
Okay. So there's this really odd dynamic. You've eaten at a restaurant, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
If you're going to be really good at your job in the service industry, if you're waiting tables or bartending, you have 1 hour to make a meaningful impact on someone else's life or a group of people's lives to the
Right.
extent that they are excited to reach into their pockets and give you money. And in my later years of working in restaurants, it really dawned on me that it's not just a money scheme, but it's this like ability to dramatically affect someone's day
Yeah.
over and over again. You're constantly being put in the situation where you're like, yeah, I can just make this a very mundane experience and not mess anything up, which is what you get most of the time. Or I can like figure out ways to really interact with and bring the mood up or the energy up of everybody that I'm in contact with. And it's exhausting to actually do that really well in restaurants.
Right.
Because most of the time you're putting on this air to the people at the table, and then you go back in the kitchen and it's messy and the cook's screaming at you and it's hot as hell, and then you have to go back out and pretend you weren't just sweating and whatever. But I fell in love with that dynamic, and that became the game I was playing. Was like, how can I really elevate the mood and energy and leave a lasting impression on everybody that I've met when I was waiting tables in this servant role? You're literally a servant. And it was enchanting for me. And I like opening up the coffee shop gives me that ability again to just go
Mm.
put myself in a mundane activity. Like I can just be sitting making an espresso, talking to
Yep.
somebody and dramatically changing their mood, their energy, their attitude. Like you were saying, even their outlook on life. If you have a life where you encounter positive people on a regular basis, your life becomes more positive. That's one way that I see the ability to, I don't know, increase the karmic vibes in the world or whatever.
Yep.
But also specifically in land, I have this sort of long-term goal of creating affordable communities that are the rough structure that I have in my head is you take a 25-acre lot, you put a 5-acre center park, pavilion, communal garden area in the middle, and then 21-acre lots around it or whatever it ends up being. All the homes are designed to be very affordable. Like it might be a one bath, two bed house, but with the designs being optimized for an addition. So you could move in just you and maybe your wife and your first kid. And as your family grows, it's already designed for an addition to be put on there. The plumbing's on this wall and the roof's gabled in
Yeah.
such a way that you can build. And the only restrictions in the community would be like it's never going to be a rental community. No one's going to come in here and rent seek and do everything in my power to build these little pockets of families around Texas. Because I think if there's one thing that's missing most is community. Like even in my neighborhood, I don't know anybody. I've lived here for eight
Right.
years. I don't know. I guess I know that family and I know that family too.
Yeah.
So I want to
That's
like
we
intentionally
moved in.
create that community.
I love it.
Yeah.
When I remember, so I've owned two houses in my life. First one was a rental in North Carolina, right outside Fort Bragg. And then the second one was this 4,000 square foot, four bed, four bath American dream home in nicest neighborhood of Kansas City in the best school district. Everyone had perfect lawns. Everything was manicured, beautiful trees. And when I moved in, I thought, this is it. I'm set. Like, I'm going to wave to my neighbors and they're going to invite me over for barbecues. And
Yep.
my kids are going to, like, some other dad, he's going to get from home from work. He's still going to be in his suit and he's going to, like, play catch with my kids. And my kids are going to ride their bikes around the neighborhood. And I'm going to have to look for them based on their bike outside someone else's front yard. And, like, you just picture this perfect life. And when we move in, I just realized, like, nobody cares that I'm here and I waved to maybe three people.
Yep.
I did have a special bond with my next door neighbor who was a Vietnam veteran, and him and I built a bunch of rifles together in his basement. But other than that connection, it wasn't what I expected, right? And I think you've experienced the same, and so that's what you're looking to change.
Yeah, and just like fostering family dynamics. I don't know. You hear it all the time. I like whatever a millennial generation. Like I grew up outside, and that's gone. Like it, granted, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, but if my kids just went outside and I didn't know where they were for 5 minutes, I'd be freaking the hell out because
Right.
there's, I don't trust people. No, I don't, there's
Hmm.
people drive through my neighborhood way too fast. There's not like a forest that they can go play in like I had growing up. So, okay, our generation as adult men, fathers, is to create that community. And I think a lot of us are doing it online, but we have to do it in real life.
Yeah.
and it's not easy.
I think what I'm learning about you, Logan, is that like once your basic needs are taken care of, you it seems like you immediately figured out that more money doesn't bring in more happiness.
Mhm.
And I think that's what I'm trying to communicate with this podcast is that it's very fun to build and scale a business, but again, once you're above the survival point where like you're not worried about paying bills for the next 6 months, it's a fallacy to chase money thinking it's going to bring in extra happiness, right?
Mhm.
And I think with your coffee shop and an Alex Hermosi type entrepreneur would say that you're distracted,
Mhm.
right? But it sounds like you're just having fun.
Yeah, dude, we have
This is your
freedom.
playground.
You can tinker.
Yeah, my wife and I have this dream. I talk about it like it's going to happen in 30 years once we hit some magical arrival point, but our dream is to have a brick oven pizza shop with one type of pizza and one type of beer.
Yeah.
And you come in and you get what you get, and if you don't like it, I'll be the pizza Nazi, kick you out, and we'll just focus on excellence, just being really good at one or two things. And we talk about it like it's some distant future project because it doesn't sound very profitable, but why not next year?
Yeah. That's kind of what I did with my land business. I used to have this, I never had a big business, but like a business where people relied on me to make a certain amount of money and things had to get turned over and I was constantly stressed about it. And now my land business is easy and predictable. And if I do nothing else, it will still pay all the bills and we're fine. But one, I'm not lazy. So it's not like I really only want to work 2 hours a day. I really like working. Like I really enjoy work. And I've learned now what I really appreciate is investing time in something that will last. Like I do it in my house. Like I love remodeling my house. I was just sitting and I built this really cool bed. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But I was sitting there and while I was working on it, I was like, man, I'm so much more patient now than I was 5 years ago. I was really sitting and fiddling to make sure everything lined up perfectly because I knew in reality I'm probably gonna be sleeping on this bed for another 5, 10 years. And I want to make sure it looks nice. And that's a very worthwhile investment. And so is a coffee shop or so is a restaurant. What is your passion project? And especially for me, like I don't have an office. I typically work either at my house or in a coffee
At a
shop.
coffee. Yeah. So you could be sitting in the back. Once you build it, you get it running.
Yeah.
You could run your lad business from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I think it's like it's freedom, man. And freedom to tinker and make mistakes and try something else. Or if I really want to double down, I can. But like I could just stop for a month and go on vacation or whatever, like you're doing, just go hang out in Korea if I really wanted to. And things would generally be fine. And I'd probably just have to work about the same amount I do now, like an hour or two. Like when my wife and I go on vacation, our lives really aren't that much different because we enjoy what we do every day. Why wouldn't we do it if we're in Hawaii or what Costa Rica or whatever?
Have you taken the Enneagram test?
I don't think so.
I don't think you're a three. Most of the people I interview here are Enneagram threes, where like achievement is what drives you, what drives them. But I think you're different. You're one of the other ones. And I don't want to try to guess what it is, but you don't come off as a three. Is one of your core fears that you'll get to the end of your life and you won't achieve enough?
No,
Yeah, you're definitely not a three then.
no. That'd be more like I didn't spend enough time with my family or something.
So Seth Williams and I were talking about this where a typical fear most people have is what you just said, right? Where they're afraid they'll work too much and miss core moments of their family. But
Hmm.
him and I were saying how him we actually have the opposite where we spend a ton of time with our kids and we have the fear where we'll get to the end of our life and we'll regret not taking enough business risk or not working on like a passion project we've always been wanting. I don't know. It's this delicate balance, right?
Yeah, I think probably a good way to look at it is like seasonality. I'm in a season right now where things are very chill. That's not going to be when I'm. It's not going to be the same as when I'm in construction. But then that construction job is going to be done, and then I'll probably take another 3, 6 months of just chill. Maybe I don't know. There's supposed to be another coffee shop right after it, so we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I just like life's so fluid. I try not to have really set thoughts about anything. Like I was saying, the most important thing for me right now is just maintaining peace of mind and serenity. That's like the way in which I can be of maximal service to the people in my life.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing that, I'm doing the right thing. That's what I believe.
I think hustle culture makes us believe the David Goggins type soundtracks we listen to when we work out, like they make us believe that if you're not working, if you're not squeezing the juice out of every single waking hour, that you're wasting it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're fine because I struggle with this. It sounds like you're fine going through a season where, at least on paper, or at least from a career standpoint, you're coasting. But when you're coasting, you it sounds like you understand that you're investing your time into things that have metrics that are hard to measure, right?
Yeah, more
Quality
like
time with family.
intentionality. Yeah, or brand building or yeah, things like that are harder to really
Yeah.
value.
Let me look at what else we covered a lot. I think your interview actually has gone much different than the other guests, which I think is a good thing. Kind of talked about starting other side projects. It sounds like you don't really have this connection where, so there's a question I have here. It says, how much risk and challenge do we need to feel alive? But it sounds like you don't really have the mindset where you're like chasing adrenaline.
I like
Like
hard
you're just
things.
this, you
I do
like
like
hard. So
hard
what
things.
drives you? Why do you like hard things?
The challenge is the journey. Like we're in the good old days now mentality. If I'm not intentionally challenging myself in some form or fashion, there's a few things. One, I'm not being an example to my kids the way I want. And if I'm not growing, I'm stagnant. And that ends up reversing course for me.
Yeah.
Those things seem antithetical, but they're not. I can take it easy, enjoy my life, and still challenge myself a lot because the challenges are just different. Like, it's more like how am I able to structure and leverage risk? Okay, if I bring you a whale, a 5,000 acre subdivide in a month or something like that, and I say, hey, we have to put together $10 million and it's going to pay out over 4 years or 5 years or something like that. And here's a predictable rate. My day to day life isn't going to change very much. I'm still going to be doing the same thing, but I will have crossed a threshold. That will be my new biggest deal. I need to be in pursuit of that.
Yeah.
And I need to have lots of stories for me. Like I want to live a storied life, and that comes with
Yeah.
freedom. So if it's an inverse, I will not live a storied life if I'm grinding on a computer all the time or whatever. If my main focus is these mundane day to day challenges, it's got to be like bigger things. I don't know. We'll see. If my goals have shifted, but 7 years ago, I remember I was driving it to my steakhouse waiter job in Dallas, and Dallas has a beautiful skyline. It's my favorite skyline, and I'm enchanted with it every time I see it. And I thought to myself, like, I'm gonna change the Dallas skyline. That's my life goal. Is I'm going to build a
Yeah.
skyscraper or knock one over. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to change that skyline. And every time I look at it, I'm going to recognize my mark on the world or whatever. It's all ego. It doesn't really
Right.
matter. I don't know if that's really a goal of mine, but that kind of said it, made everything seem very possible when I had that thought. Because then I
Yeah.
was able to script it a little bit. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do that, I can't go from just flipping lands to flipping bigger land or something. I'm eventually going to have to go vertical. And then I'm going to have to go vertical into commercial. And then I'm going to have to go
Hmm.
commercial into probably syndication. Then I'm going to have to go syndication into this. And I'm going to have to take a lot of steps. And I'm going to have to make them very quickly because I'm sure by the time I'm like 60, I'm not going to be caring about changing. I'm probably just not going to care. So I'm going to have to make a lot of big steps in 20 years. And
Yep.
that'll probably be my whole career in real estate.
That's what I want. I want to end up building a skyscraper.
Yeah.
So those leaps, I've thought through the same progressions, right? One obstacle I have is I don't want to do the whole I don't want to deal with investors. I don't want to do the whole syndication thing. I want to talk with civil engineers. I want to talk with the city. I want to talk with architects.
hmm
But so that progression, is that something that you're actively pursuing, or it's like a dream at this point?
My ego's
Because
shrunk a lot since then. So I still want to make big leaps and always be challenged. It still seems really cool to do that, but I would much prefer to like provide affordable homes to 1,000 families or something
Yeah.
like that.
Okay. So similar aspirations, just not as tall, more wide,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah.
Have you had a point yet where, because I've had this twice, where I've scaled a business, I got it running smoothly, and then right when it hit a sweet spot where everyone said that's when I should be happy, that's exactly when I get bored. Have
Hmm.
you gotten bored yet in any of your businesses?
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm gonna have to go here in a couple minutes, but
Yep.
I have gotten bored at times. But it's not been bad because the changes in our industry have made it so that I've always had to change a little bit
Okay.
to stay
You've always had to
relevant.
pivot.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's been a natural progression. But the idea of stepping out of real estate altogether into coffee is a little bit of a change. But that was actually something someone brought to me with a lot of vigor. All
Yeah.
I really had to do was say yes to it.
I love it. Hey, before you go, let's give you a chance to make some plugs. Is there anything you're working on that you want people to know of? Any kind of events that you're attending that you want to see people at? Is there a way people can get a hold of you if they want?
Yeah, man, just listen to my podcast, The Land Fixer podcast. It's on all the podcatchers. And if you want to email me, just email me at thelandfixer at gmail.com.
Awesome. Logan, appreciate you. Thanks for your time. Enjoy that family time. I know you have a hard cutoff every day, which I think is awesome.
Yeah,
So say hi to the wife
will
and
do.
until next time.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. I appreciate it. Bye.
Yeah. All right. That's it for today. I hope this conversation got you thinking and maybe even questioning a few things. And that's the point. This isn't about having all the answers, it's about figuring it out together. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want to keep exploring these ideas, make sure to subscribe and follow me over at theothersideofenough.com. Let's keep the conversation going and see you next time.